Locked and loaded.
Welcome, guys. Sorry for the subtle delay. We have an amazing guest for us in Lock and Loaded. We are locked and loaded, ready to go today to really continuously enhance the quality of what we do in the ABA industry. And as we have an amazing holiday coming up this Sunday, which is Father's Day.
So happy Father's Day to you, Larry.
And happy Father's Day to you,
all the fathers
Dr.
out there who are watching.
Yes. And what we know that fathers is such an important entity to our family's dynamics. But statistically, what are we seeing out there, Dr. Lee?
It's mainly the mothers have been involved in the child's IEPs, school progress, things like that. So we want to make sure that the whole family, fathers are involved as well.
That's right. We have seen in our industry, in ABA, you're pretty rarely going to typically see a mom in session. You're typically going to see the moms in IEPs. Also, statistically, we see the highest divorce rate with this population. When you have a kid with autism and special needs, it's higher than infidelity, it's higher than money, economic issues, is higher than distance, where you're just away from your spouse because of military or whatnot. Literally the highest statistics of divorce is to have an individual with special needs. And we want to change that. And in order to change it, we got to understand it.
So we're bringing in a special guest today. We're going to have a discussion with him. What are some of the challenges? See if he can create some sort of strategies for other dads out there as well.
And some successes. I mean, I'm pretty sure they've been through what you guys have been through. But I'm just curious to know how he got out of it and they're able to still live and work collaboratively and have a harmonious life. You know, he has 2 kids, this particular individual. He's a doctor. He's going to give his own introduction of who he is, but he is a doctor. One of the smartest. He's a doctor in science, works for Loma Linda University, and proctors all the next generation of doctors related to science and chemistry and biology. So I'm super excited to have this. But before we bring this awesome gentleman in, let's talk about what it takes in ABA and what we're seeing statistically related to how dads are integrated into the process. What's your experience, Dr. Lee?
Well, a lot of times someone has to stay at home to take care of the kids, and then someone has to be the breadwinner to provide for the family. And traditionally has been the mother at home and the father is working. But in recent years, we're seeing more of the mothers going out and taking care of the finances, having a career of her own, and we're seeing more dads being able to stay at home. So that's been a flip in terms of tradition. So when we see now, okay, dads now, what can you do to support not just financially, but also with the issues with the children?
That's right. And in Lock and Loaded, we're here to talk about the loaded situations that happen. We're not here to shy away from it, because shying away from the loaded situations is not going to make anyone better. And what I know from my experience is that there is a lot of conflict of how to raise your child with autism. So a parent wants to say, hey, you're too tough, or you shouldn't do this. Where the dad is like, well, this is all I know. My only approach and my only style is to be a little tougher or a little bit more dad-oriented. And that creates a hardcore disconnect between the mom and the dad in a sense of discipline.
Yeah, when everyone is not on the same page, the child is going to learn, okay, with dad I can get away with this, or with mom I'm going to get away with this. So we want to make sure, like, okay, we're using the same strategies across the board, parents, grandparents, caregivers, everybody. So that way there is just one strategy, but the child's not confused, the child knows how to interact with everyone.
And that's so important, right, Dr. Lee, is to getting everyone on the same page, and that is sometimes so hard to get dad to see what mom sees. It's hard to see to have mom see what dad sees. And during this day of Father's Day, we want to make sure that we highlight our dads because we know that dads are so important. 90%, 1 out of 5 kids, or 1 out of 4, right? Are boys. So boys need their dads. Boys need their dads to be incorporated to show them simpleties of just how to use the restroom by standing up. Right? Dads can model that behavior if a child is exhibiting some confusion. Dads can be there to show them fishing. Show them, not to say moms can't do the fishing and some, but it's so important to have dads and have that role model, right? That dad and mom together. And moms are amazing. Hands down, moms are amazing. And if they had a dad there to support them and to understand, it just makes the household and dynamic so much more. And that's what statistics are saying. And that when we're out there talking to these parents, that's what they're saying. That if we can have the moms and dads work together, it makes the household more fluid. What's your thoughts?
I totally agree with that. So just being at it alone is going to be so much more difficult. And then if you have another spouse that's not on board with what you're doing, there's going to be conflict in the home. The child sees that, there's going to be more complications.
And remember, what do we see in ABA? Behaviors are learned. So if the parents are arguing, they're learning that arguing, quote unquote, is okay. Because the two people that they love, they see them arguing and they think that that's the way to communicate sometimes out in the world.
I think a lot of times we don't think that the child understands what we're saying when we may be talking about them in front of them or maybe arguing in front of them, but they do understand us. They do hear what we're saying. So.
That's one thing, is a misperception, I believe, with kids with autism, that they don't understand. They hear, they got good hearing. Maybe they can't articulate or say everything that they may want to say, but they understand everything. They understand the world around them. That's just human behavior, is to understand. That's survival. It's, you have to be able to understand. And to help us understand, we have an amazing dad that we're going to bring in.
So without further ado, we have Dr. Perry. Would you like to come join us?
Dr. Perry, come on to set. Let's give it up for Dr. Perry, guys. Welcome, Dr. Perry. Nice to have you today. All right, so Dr. Perry, as we just articulated to our audience out there, this is Dr. Perry. Tell the audience who you are and a little bit about you and your family.
Thank you very much, Larry. I have a family of 3 children. My oldest, Gemma, she has autism. My middle son, Nathan, and Benjamin, he has autism. I've been living in California since 2009, and I enjoy my work, right, as a research scientist.
2009. Where were you before that? You look a little younger.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit. Are you from the United States? Where are you from?
Okay. So my parents, we immigrated from the Caribbean when I was 5. So I grew up in the UK.
Okay.
I went to school in the UK, and I came to the States in 2000.
Nice.
Research fellowship.
So he's from the, what do we call the UK? The London. Is that London or?
Well, Watford is a suburb of London.
Oh, Watford, my bad. Is that where Harry Potter was?
No, that's where, it's famous for the football club, right?
That's what I wanted you to say.
Yeah.
Nice. So how was London and UK and your educational experience as you're a doctor, you're a scientist? Talk to us just about that journey. And then you met your wife, she's from Madagascar, and you guys met and had 3 beautiful kids.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. So, went to school, London actually to study chemistry, and then I went to graduate school in Liverpool, the home of the Beatles. I actually lived next to Everton Football Club, so that was kind of interesting. And you know, I met my wife while she was a student. She came to visit the UK, and that's how I met her. Right?
That would have been a good experience. As I see that big smile on your face.
Yes.
How long have you been married?
It'll be 24 years in September.
Wow, 24 years. That's a journey.
You decided to continue in States.
Well, work actually, you know, people migrate for opportunities, so that's why I came to the States.
And what was your first opportunity here?
I got a fellowship to postdoctoral fellowship in the chemistry department at Johns Hopkins, so I lived in Baltimore for 4 years.
Okay, so you're at Johns Hopkins Hospital in
Well, the
Baltimore.
chemistry department.
In the
There's
chemistry
There are
department.
different campuses. There's a
Okay.
Homewood campus, and then there's a hospital. I was on the Homewood.
Well, that's great. I mean, not everyone migrates to go and work at Johns Hopkins, one of the best hospitals out there. How was that experience for you?
It was a very positive experience, you know. It was a good experience work-wise, and I met a lot of friends, you know, from socially. That was very good, actually.
Nice. That is so important. And through that experience in Baltimore, you had your first daughter, right?
Yes. So that was an interesting experience, you know, when Gemma was born. Yeah, so it was quite an eventful birth because Gemma was crying all the time. She was colloquially, and I didn't understand why this girl was crying.
Your first child.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I didn't know about autism. I mean, I didn't. Now I can see why she was crying all the time and colicky all the time. I did not know that that's a sensory problem. I had no idea.
Right.
And the pediatrician had no idea.
Well, it was new maybe back then. Gemma is how long? How old
22.
now?
That was 2002.
22. That's awesome. Back in 2002, that was your first introduction to autism.
Yes.
And how did you, as a dad, and your wife embrace that diagnosis? Because I know it was scary.
Well, it was strange because Gemma, she was not meeting the milestones, and she was crying, and then she was staring to the ceiling, and you know, it was like a blank stare. And you know, we went to see the pediatrician, and we said, "What's wrong with her?" And she said, "Well, just wait." And then when I moved to Huntsville, Alabama, then this pediatrician before then suggested, "Oh, we should, you know, see a social worker." And then we realized that something wasn't right, and then that's when we moved, and we got the diagnosis when I moved jobs. And so that's when I got introduced to the problems of autism and what that was.
So how did you and your wife embrace it as a first-time dad, having a child for the first time? Because, you know, there's a lot of people out there and a lot of dads out there that they have a kid for the first time and then they get the diagnosis that my first child has autism. And it's scary. How did you embrace having a child, and how scary or how was it for you and your family, and how did you take it?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm a stoic person by nature, so you know, it's like this is what it is, right? So I use my analytical mind to understand what was going on. I tried to understand why she's not developing, why this developmental delay, and try to understand what was going on. And then, you know, it was a journey. So I guess we didn't have a lot of time to grieve because we had to deal with what was there, right?
I think that's an important piece. Dr. Lee.
Yeah. Did it put a strain on your relationship with your wife in terms of having?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say not so much. I mean, I think it gets worse as you get older. You know, we're young and naive and optimistic. I think that's the idea, to have a good, you know, a can-do attitude. So it was difficult because, you know, it was difficult, you know, the isolationism, but, you know, reading up, trying to understand and figuring out what we need to do, and reaching out to people to find out.
So you guys both stayed positive in the beginning.
Yes.
So once you got older, it became more difficult because
Yes.
you had three.
Yes.
Two of them.
Yeah.
As much. spectrum.
Yes.
Then having the third one, and now we're seeing that second child now has autism as well. How did you deal with that?
I think, some weeks, some good days, some bad days. So I think for me, and you're aware of this, that the strategies of how to deal with kids on the spectrum is completely foreign to what, and depending on your cultural background. So that took some time, because it's very frustrating to try to figure out why the child is not responding to the way that you were trained and thinking a different way. It's very challenging, especially if they're aggressive and they have extensive maladaptive behaviors. And it's challenging.
You have a full-time job. How can you stay involved with your children's IEP, schools, things like that?
That's a good question. I guess you have to have a certain level of maturity and realize that you have to make some sacrifices and give up many things. So go to the ball game, relaxing in front of the TV, hanging out with your friends. You can't really do that because you have 2 jobs. So when you get home, you have to maybe pitch in straight away.
Yeah, you just start your second job right away. So, but through this, how are you and your wife able to manage? Because you eloquently said it's different having a child and knowing the nuances of a kid with autism. So how would you parent that when you don't know? What book did you read? Where did you go to get any support? Because I don't know if there's a book out there for parents to know how to manage something. And a dad too, because dad had these expectations. Dads, we're wired slightly differently.
Yes.
So talk about
So, ask any parent, kids don't come with an instruction manual. That's a cliche statement, but you have to reach out for resources. That's what we did. No, it's not a book, but talk to professionals. So for Gemma, for example, in Huntsville, we had to reach out to an ABA company and do district trials. So what I had to do was very strange. I had to go to the bank, or was like credit union, correction, and get a loan of $10,000 to pay for ABA. So
oh wow.
So I had to go to the bank and say, I need $10,000 to pay this company to bring like 4 girls and do 6 months of discrete trials.
Wow. So let's talk about that. I never, I think we're a little bit, I guess the term I'm looking for, we're really maybe taken care of, or a little bit like bougie here in California because parents don't have to pay. So to hear a parent that had to pay $10,000 for service in Alabama.
That was 2007.
And in 2007, to me, and I'm pretty sure our audience, that's unheard of. To have to go to your bank and say, I need $10,000 to get my kid service.
I mean, that's not unheard of, but
Oh, maybe not. For me.
Yeah, so it depends on where you are in the country, right? So yeah, depends on if you're in the South or in the Midwest or West Coast. And so California and some other blue states, there are more resources available. So so I think that the trick is you have to identify the problem. I will do a SWOT analysis, right? If your kid, clearly parents, should recognize that there's a problem for your kid and try to understand what the nature of the problem is and try and access the resources. So step by step.
But what I'm hearing, Dr. Perry, there's a lot of sophistication. Because instead of you getting emotional,
yeah, I was emotional. Of course,
okay, so let's talk about, because that's what most dads are going to get is emotional. Like, what the heck? Oh no. And you're going to argue, you and your wife are going to have more arguments.
I mean.
How did your wife have more arguments because of that? Or
see, I think, I would say there's some conflict. I think conflict in marriage is not a bad thing. It's how you deal with the conflict. So, there's nothing wrong with arguing with your wife and But as long as you come to some sort of agreement, it might be painful, the process of going back and forth with your wife, but you have to say, okay, we're dealing with an issue here, right? You know, if it's a difference of agreement, let's discuss it. Even if we have to argue, but we need to come to some sort of solution.
And I love that. It's like, yes, we're going to argue, but at the end of this argument, let's get to a solution.
I think what I've learned, you should not be afraid of difficult conversations. And we have them every day, right? Difficult conversations.
No, difficult conversations, you're right, are hard to have.
But I think, yeah.
You have to be sophisticated, in my thoughts, to have difficult conversations, or it can go difficultly.
Did you have disagreements in terms of parenting style, discipline with each other?
Yeah, of course, all the time. But I mean, you know, just that you have to compromise.
Okay.
You know, if okay, you want to do it your way, fine. If it's I can see it's not working, let's try it my way, or get professional help.
Okay. So you and your wife, you guys have been married for 24 years. You guys have 3 kids, 2 kids on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And would you consider, that is amazing to me, because you don't really see the unit stay together the way that you guys have. And I know from being there, it hasn't been easy at all. IEPs, just being able to drive your daughter into a car without her trying to break out the window, or, you know, there's just all, right? There's so many things that you and your wife has encompassed together that could have easily pushed you guys apart. But it seems like you guys 24 years later are still a unit. How do you help these dads out there stay locked in?
Well, you know, it's about, I think goes into marital counseling and other things, right? So
Did you have ever counseling? Do you think this population needs
I think
support like that?
I would say that, you know, I mean, I would say I got lucky, but I think that should be part of the strategy, because it's, you know, it's a disaster if that, because, you know, the issue really is commitment, right? And sometimes, you know, when you're young, you don't have the communication strategies, and we're still working on it. But I think that's very important.
So you're saying maybe like a psychologist, Dr.
No, I agree with Dr. Perry here. When we go into the home, we provide services, ABA. We do see relationship issues with the family. We can't provide any services, but we do refer them to one of our other doctors, Dr. Soriano. And we let the parents know, okay, I know that we see these issues, these problems with the relationship. We have a doctor who can help you with that. So not only that we're helping the child with the ABA, but we're also helping the environment, the whole family with relationship issues. I think that's going to be important if we are to have a healthy environment.
The bottom line is that everybody needs to be taken care of, because it's not in the interest of the child, because you have to keep the whole unit
together.
Even though it's difficult, you know, things are falling off, you have to repair it.
No, that's right. Just like if our car breaks down, we got to go take it to a shop. If we break down, we go to the doctor, right? But if a relation break down, people are scared to go get the support that they need. And I think if our data and our statistics show such a high rate in this industry, I'm curious to know how many families are getting counseling or getting support, and how we maybe have turned another direction to say, because I know at BAT we do, as Dr. Lee mentioned, we have a psychologist, a family psychologist that BAT has. So because we know.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that it's difficult, right? It's difficult, you know, you're dealing with real world problems, external problems, and I think the worst thing, as I said before, in the previous podcast, is that, you know, people use, you know, alternative solutions such as substance abuse. You know, don't do that. So I think, you know, it is important to have, you know, do exercise, don't do drugs. You know, just don't use alternative coping mechanisms, because it's just going to make it worse, right?
No, it's true. And the mechanisms can be where I'm just going to be outside of my house. And it may not be drugs. It's just my addiction to be away from my house because it's so chaotic that I don't want to be there, so I'm going to go do something different. Instead of going straight to the challenge and really trying to say, hey, let's come together and let's find solutions together. And if the togetherness means a psychologist to help us with our issues outside, because if you have issues outside of your kids and then you have a kid with autism, that just blows up everything. It just makes everything worse. The issues that you already had that you can't really address anymore because the attunement is on your child. But a counselor helps you see everything. What's your thoughts on that? Because you've been through it.
I mean, I would say, I have to be honest with you, I think, especially among the minority community, the issue of mental health, depression among men, that could be part of the problem. You know, there's a reason to be depressed because, you know, things are not good, and so that's something that's not discussed.
So you're saying that within certain communities, especially certain cultures, that depression is a taboo to talk about, and men don't want to talk about it because it's a prideful thing. They feel that it's, but reality is you're not immune to depression. No matter who you are, no matter what culture, no matter what you are, you're not immune to it. It's reality sometimes if you're just, things are not going the way that you think that they should go.
Now, for example, if you go from, you get up and you don't know what's going to happen with your kid, you go from one crisis to another and a crisis to another, you don't know. It's challenging because...
So have you been through depression?
I mean, I wouldn't want to say that, but of course I felt low, and you know, I have to figure out, okay, I have to deal with it, because if I wouldn't say clinical depression, but you have to, you know, you feel sad, but you have to somehow shake it off and just keep going.
But you're a doctor. Your level of thought processes maybe and your sophistication may be different from maybe everyone else. So what supports that we can give to everyone else that may not have that level of thought process, that level of thinking that you have as a doctor to say, yes, I'm low. I'm sad. I'm not sad, but I'm low today. I'm a little bit not happy about everything that's happening in my life. I'm going to shake it off and think about how to make it better. Not everyone has that thought processes, and that just continuously brings them, as a dad, we start isolating ourselves. We start getting angry. We start doing things that is not within our character.
Well, I would say support groups, usually female that attend it. There should be more men support groups. You know.
You hear that, dad, from a dad. You're 100% right.
Yeah, it should be just for men where they can actually have somebody to talk to. Right? We're not good at that sort of thing, and to feel vulnerable and not judged.
Vulnerability and not being judged. That's something guys don't like. They don't like feeling vulnerable, and we don't like being judged by people. So you're right. So those two things make us shy away from support groups. Don't want us to be around, but we need them so much because we need the support.
I mean, one strategy would be, for example, if you say support group, men are not going, but you know, they're like sports, they're like other things. So you could have activities and you could integrate that within, slide it in.
So we gotta trick them. So okay, dads, Tequila Tuesday, right? Tequila Tuesday, let's go have some tequila. We're gonna talk about it, about all the challenges. And we're gonna Uber you home because we know we got some challenges out there.
Yeah, because if the focus is on the problem, that's not, men are not gonna be just...
No, I agree with you, Dr. Perry. I think this is why we have you here, is to talk, and why we have Locked and Loaded, is to talk about these things that dads keep internal. They're not talking to their wives about this. They're not talking to their friends about this because it is vulnerable. It is scary. It kind of is a sense of weakness in a weird way. And it's really not weakness. It's actually strength. If you can actually talk about it more, it shows how strong you are to talk about things that aren't great, you know? And that's what I'm saying, 24 years, and most people don't know your history with who your kids are. I know, Dr. Lee knows, and your daughter graduated high school. Oh my God, I think the whole agency was so happy because maybe 5 years ago, that was not something that was in her forecast. That wasn't something that we imagined.
Yeah, you can give some context with
The
Gemma.
school district
Yeah.
wanted to kick her out of class. They didn't want her there. Nobody ever had optimism in terms of her being in the classroom.
No, yes, that's 100% true. Like every environment was so scared of Gemma. She had to go to MPSs. She had to go literally maybe an hour and a half away just to get to a school that would accept her in some way. But most importantly, there came to a point where even the family did not know if they can have her and sent her to a group home for a while because it was so hard for the family. And I could just imagine how hard that was for a dad to see their daughter in a group home, how hard it was for your wife. But then you brought her back. And for the last 2 or 3 years, she's been amazing back at home. Of course, I want to say you still got work to do, but nowhere near where it was before she left, where what drove you guys. And as a dad, how did that feel?
Well, I mean, Gemma, I think what I learned with dealing with that population is a combination, right? Because she wasn't on medication, so there's a role for medication and behavioral strategies. So you have to have a 360 approach for it to work. If one of the pieces are missing, it's not going to quite work.
No, you're right. But I think most dads, where do you get that information? Is there a book out there for you, or is it trial and error?
Unfortunately, it's trial and error, and I was fortunate to work with BAT, right, and get access to the resources. Some folks won't have that, have access to the resources, and we need to change that.
And we're trying. I think that's what Lock and Loaded is trying to do, is to change the future. We can't change what happened in the past, but we can change the future by talking about the past and seeing how we can strategize for what's better. And dads are so important into this equation. And we have a dad like you that has 24 years, and there's not one, if there's a parent out there dealing with anything, there's not one situation that this dad hasn't been through. He has 2 kids, as we mentioned. We've only talked about his daughter, but we haven't talked about his son, right? So he has 2, and we haven't even talked about his neurotypical kid that is an enfant, who's extremely smart, how he has to manage being a dad with a neurotypical kid and then switch his role of being a dad with 2 kids on the spectrum. So it's definitely very challenging, and without the sophistication and without the teamwork, I don't know how you and your wife are able to, because your son is in college right now.
Yes, correct.
Right? Is finished his first successful year.
Yes, correct.
At a great university. That's awesome. And I'm pretty sure your son has went through a lot, being a sibling of 2 kids, to having a sister and a brother that he can't talk to and relate to, but he has a dad. He has a mom. Those dynamics in a household can be very overwhelming, to be honest. And the way that you sit here and handle yourself with the stoic and positive approach is so amazing, man. And I just want to give you credit, because I don't think every dad out there can do that.
I mean, I think another thing I know is that I think having some sort of belief system or philosophy is very important. I think that's very important.
So your belief and your belief in things, religious beliefs or just beliefs, have really helped guide you through this as well, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
to give strategies to the other dads, because we're going to have to pray on something.
Because things are going to happen which you can't predict, right? You have to try and make sense of the world, and people have different schemas to make sense of the world. And if you can't make sense of the world why this is happening, it's very difficult, right? As Dr. Lee will, as a psychologist, can expand on that, right?
Yeah, definitely. When you're down, you're like feeling low. What is the next step? It depends on what your beliefs are. It's like, I'm optimistic, I can go on. I know I can, I have families to support me. I think that's, if you have that good social support, you're gonna go a lot further than if you don't have that social support, especially in difficult times.
I mean, another thing as well, which is going back to the family thing, is that if the parents don't have the same value system, that's where we have a problem.
And you and your wife have a same strong value system that
Yeah.
allows for you to get through these difficult times and different things.
So if you have the same value system, core principles which are in agreement, you can disagree on everything else in some sense, because you know that the foundation is the same. You might want a different color blinds or something, or different way of cooking something, but that's a disagreement, right? That's not changing the core agreement there.
That's right. But that level of sophistication, not everyone is gonna maybe have at the moment. And that's what we're trying to say. In order to have a kid with autism, it's okay. I think it's a beautiful thing. You just have to come together and work more together as mom and dad together. Dr. Lee, your thoughts?
No, I think just having, what Dr. Perry saying, having that same beliefs, same values as your significant other, that's the key. If you're not on that same page, even little agreements may throw you off. But if you're on the same page in terms of that core, these little disagreements, things like that, you're still going to be at the end of the day working together.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that's where, if you're married and you don't know what your spouse's core beliefs are, that's where the professional then needs to come in. Maybe if you get help, right, they can identify what your spouse's core beliefs are, or values, and see how they can adjust, right? That's the problem right there.
No, I mean, I never really took this into consideration, but it sounds like in this industry with ABA, when we're trying to keep the dynamics and core together, we look at ABA to help the child, but we haven't done anything to help the parents.
I think that starts from the parents.
And everything starts with the parents. It really does. And agreeing on what IEP, or agreeing on what services, or agreeing on this or that, agreeing that, hey, let's not get too overwhelmed with the behaviors that we see today. That all takes togetherness. And a psychologist may have to come in with certain dynamics to help that unit, because again, our divorce rate is so high, and it's so important. And I'll be honest, Gemma and Benji and Nathan would not have been successful if you were gone or if mom was gone.
Yeah, it's not working.
It wouldn't have worked. And it literally, they needed both of you guys for Gemma to graduate, for these decisions, and for Benji, for Nathan to go to college. It takes a village, as we say in our podcast. It takes a village to make things move. And the village, if one of their chiefs in the village is gone, then now that's a hole that is missed to continue to move this kid in the direction of positivity. So Dr. Lee, when it comes down to fathers, what are we seeing out there? How can we bring fathers more into sessions? How do we bring fathers more into IEPs? Because I know this gentleman is a spitfire. Some IEPs he wasn't agreeing with and wasn't happy. How do we keep him calm? How do we keep him regulated?
In terms of ABA, if the father is working, let's try to at least have a session on a Saturday, so that the father can be involved in a session, know what the programs are, being able to teach that parent.
I'm loaded. I'm loaded right now, Locke. Dad's like, man, it's my Saturday. I worked all week. I don't want nobody on my Saturday to talk to me. I just want to be left alone. That's my one day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we have that discussion with Dad. Like, hey, we know this is your Saturday, this is your day off. just 2 hours on that day.
2?
Just 2 hours.
Oh my goodness, Doc, you gave 2.
Let's talk about the child. Do you really want your child to progress? Let's look at that, and then they are going to want their children to make progress, so they should be involved. We've been guilty.
You know, but that's the challenge. I'll be honest, Dr. Lee, that is the challenge that most ABA individuals have, is trying to find that time with dads. And I think what we may have to inadvertently do is ask them, what would be a good time? Because me, I would rather do telehealth than having someone come to my house. I'd rather be on the phone with someone while I'm driving home after my day before I get into my house and have to start my next job.
I mean, that's a great strategy, giving that parent that choice.
Right? So giving parents these choices to say, when and how can we connect with you? You are important. I know you're busy, but hey, you listen to music, you listen to other things. How can we be a part of that world where while you're driving or telehealth, why it gives you while you're home a reason why you shouldn't be in the trenches with everything right there. So it kind of gives a little bit of ways of learning, but dads have to help us. Dads out there, you got to help us, because we're going to come in and say, hey, Saturdays or this day, and that Saturday already in your head may be a no-no. It may be, that would be like I'm done. I'm done with ABA because now they're trying to have me do something on Saturdays, right? So that's where we may have to challenge them to say, tell us when you're available, but I know you're available. You know, I know there is a time, and we'll work our way to that time to meet them in the middle. Because ABA has to meet dads in the middle. Moms, they're always there. We don't have to be in the middle. They're the beginning, middle, and end. The mom. But dads, I believe we gotta find that middle ground and ask them, because be honest, man, dads, they're like, man, I don't know about autism. I'm frustrated. I don't got time for this. I'm just gonna go and do something different.
Mom, you deal with it.
And mom, you deal with it, right? And that's what typically occurs out there. That's what I'm hearing now, as long as I've been in this industry. And we're trying to change that, because what we've found in the data is that when there is a nucleus of mom and dad together, oh my God, the kids are flourishing. I can tell you some kids out there where they got both moms and dad. And I'm gonna just go to the most highest, the celebrities, right? Holly Robinson, Rodney Peete, 2 amazing individuals. Their kid is flourishing because you got both dad, who's amazing, and mom, who's also amazing, equally involved. We have this doctor and his wife equally involved, in why we see his daughter, who I did not think would graduate with everything going on, get a high school diploma, be able to walk the stage, and be able to have a diploma with pictures. She was in her heels, in a dress, looking like a princess. You know, that's awesome. And as an educator, like a dad like him, all we want to see is our kids with other diplomas. You know, so I think that's where we're at, is trying to find that for dads out there, because that's the next generation. We have looked at the statistic and said, all right, enough with this statistics, we need to make change. And we're talking about it because of Father's Day, but this starts the conversation.
We heard Mr. Perry, or Dr. Perry, say he had to make sacrifices. So dads, you're gonna have to make sacrifices. You may have to turn off that Dodger game and spend a little more time.
Not the Dodger game. I can see if you're an Angel fan, it'll be easier. No, I'm just joking.
Definitely, everyone's got to make a sacrifice.
Yes. So what we now do during this segment is open it up to our audience. What questions would you like to ask this dad or this panel of dads here? And questions, thoughts. Is there anyone out there from our producer?
Somebody left a comment earlier when you guys were talking about marriage counseling and family counseling. They said, very true, it is hard on marriages to stay together when there is a child or children on the spectrum or with any disability. And then there was just somebody else that commented and was just agreeing with you guys and had sent some heart emojis. But other than that, there haven't been any questions.
Okay, so right now, guys, if there's any other questions, as our producer Jaya mentioned, people did make a comment about how right we were about how important the psychology in the counseling role is, that we sometimes don't add to this equation with having a kid with autism. We have an amazing dad, a doctor, Dr. Perry. Any questions on any of his experiences or any challenges or thoughts that you guys, moms or dads out there, or any other professionals that are out there that you guys may have for Mr. Perry, in the sense of questions or, ideas or thoughts? Jay is looking at, some of the things that are being typed up right now. So let's give our audience a little bit of time to concoct their questions and thoughts. But during that time, we're gonna, we're here. I just want to thank you, as a dad, for being committed. It's a commitment to your kids. It's a commitment to your wife. It's a commitment to you saying, I do. I do mean something. And you said something 2 years ago when we were in another podcast that really registered. You said kids are someone you can't divorce. You can't divorce your kid. So how can you just divorce your wife, right? So it's like I was like, that registered to me like, oh yeah, you can. I can't, no matter how my kids are, whatever I feel about, I can't divorce them. I can't be like, all right, let's go to court and divorce my kid right now, right? And you made that same analogy. It's like, if I can't divorce my kids, I should not divorce my wife, right? So that kind of registered to me a little bit 2 years ago, and I just thought that was really, it sat with me, and I just thought, I think our audience needs to hear that. And I just, like I said, I just think you're an amazing individual, how smart you are, how dedicated you are, not just to your family, but you're dedicated to your students. You love what you do. I know you love working at Loma Linda. You speak highly of your time there and your, appreciation that you have for them and what they've done for you and your family, and also just the love that you have of helping students. And I just want to thank you for your love for them, your love for your own personal family, for your wife, for your 2-3 kids, and just for the community of autism. You didn't have to come here in your busy day to come here and be a part of this podcast of Locked and Loaded, but you did, and I'm so appreciative, Dr. Lee and I.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. I
Thank you
admired
very much.
how involved you are with the program. Calling us up, wanting to know with your psychiatrist if the medication is working, because without the data, we wouldn't know whether we need to up the dosage, lower the dosage, things like that. But you have been so involved, wanting to see your children grow. So thank you.
Yeah. And we have something here. I see our producer has something here for you. We have a Father's Day shirt.
Oh.
Yes. So again, this is who we think you are. You're strong. You're your family and the community's hero. You're funny. You're important. You are patient. And most importantly, you need to know that you're loved.
Thank you.
You're a dad. That's for you, Mr. Perry. Thank you again for being here with us today. Continuously be a dad. If there's anything BAT can do for you and your family, we're here. Dr. Lee, Locked and Loaded. Thank you, Mr. Perry, for just who you are and what you do as a dad.
Thank you very much.
Fine.
Thank you.
And thank you guys out there for being a part of
Lock
and Loaded for this episode. We'll see you next week for a surprise episode. Yes, we're gonna surprise you. We don't want to share with you this. We want you to be locked in.
and lock.
to it all. Thank you guys. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. To you, Mr. Parrish.
Shake your hands.
To you, Dr. Lee. And to all the other dads out there. Thank you for being a dad. Thank you for being amazing for your kids. That's what helps our community continue to move in a positive trajectory. Thank you guys.